Hi, I'm Andre, I'm a black nerd, and I just got back from D23 Expo. So much was revealed over this fan event all about Disney. So Disney stuff was mentioned, Marvel stuff was mentioned, Star Wars was mentioned. I did a video live from the floor about Infinity War, so you check that out if you haven't seen it. But the big question that a lot of you have been asking me about, what about DuckTales? They had a DuckTales panel at D23. I got to attend and get all the info, the juicy secrets, the scoops about the upcoming new DuckTales reboot series that's coming to Disney XD. I'm so excited about this show. I'm even more excited now that I've seen this panel. They had cast members from the show at the panel. They had the co-executive producers of the show and the story editor of the show at the panel. I got the details. I got notes, y'all. So let's talk about these ducks. Yes, I talk a lot about DuckTales on this show and other Disney afternoon favorites. So be sure to subscribe if you're into that sort of thing, and also ring that bell to be notified of future videos that I make. Be part of that squad by the bell. So the panel started with a video message from David Tennant. He was not able to attend D23, but he left a nice message just saying thanks to everybody who's excited about the show, and he's excited about doing the show. He's voicing Scrooge McDuck, so that's really cool. The Doctor is Scrooge McDuck. That's some really awesome news, having the Doctor as a duck. That's probably the biggest Doctor Who news that will happen this entire weekend. Sure of it. Like, what else could they possibly do? Jokes. So they started off by having the cast and the creators talk about some of their earliest DuckTales memories, and everything was mentioned. The Disney Afternoon was mentioned. Ben Schwartz, who's voicing Dewey, made a funny joke about how he used to go home and watch Disney Afternoon from DuckTales and Gummy Bears all the way up to whatever was the last show on the Disney Afternoon at the time, because like that slot changed frequently, and it's very true. Goof Troop, Darkwing Duck, Gargoyles, you know, so many different shows took that last slot. Kate Micucci, who's doing the voice of Webby, she talked about how she was a big fan of the DuckTales video game as a kid, but she didn't own the game, so she used to visit her cousin. Her cousin lived about an hour away from her, and whenever she would go to visit her cousin, she'd be like, "Hey cuz, what's up? Where that DuckTales video game at?" And she would play the game at her cousin's place. So I thought that was really cool. The creators, of course, mentioned the comics a lot. They said that a lot of the inspiration of the style and the art of the new series is based on the style and the look of the comic books, like even meshing different artist styles from the various comics to make the characters. They talked a lot about Donald Duck's beak, and apparently they used like two different artist styles, combined them in a way to make the perfect beak. Apparently drawing beaks or making beaks on ducks animated is very hard, which is so weird because so many cartoon characters are ducks. They give us a little bit of details about the pilot. That's the episode they're gonna air in August. It's gonna air for 24 hours straight. It's an hour-long episode. But in that episode, Huey, Dewey, and Louie are going to learn that they are related to Scrooge McDuck. So up to this point, they don't know. They wanted to really stress the idea of family with this show. That's why they also kept Donald in this one as opposed to the original series where Donald was like, "I'm going off to the Navy, y'all stay with Scrooge, I'm out." In the comic books, of course, Donald was with Scrooge and Huey, Dewey, and Louie on the adventures. And they thought since they wanted to really hone in the concept of family in this version of DuckTales, they thought it'd be weird to not have Donald around and be this like absentee guardian while they're trying to teach the values of family. So that's why we're like, Donald's got to be in this too, which I think is going to be great. It's going to be a definite instant change of what's different with this DuckTales versus the original series by going back to the comics of having Donald there. Beakley, of course, is going to be there. They talked a lot about Miss Beakley. They talked about Launchpad. they asked why is Launchpad still around and why does Scrooge keep hiring him as his pilot and chauffeur since he crashes everything. And Beck Bennett, who voices Launchpad, was like, "He's cheap." And I was like, yep, that's pretty much the reason. That's Scrooge McDuck in a nutshell right there. We learn about Launchpad, that he's not just gonna be the pilot for Scrooge McDuck, but he's also gonna be the chauffeur. Like anytime Scrooge needs to travel, Launchpad apparently is going to be the guy doing the traveling for him or operating the machinery that does the traveling that will eventually crash. We also got some more information about Mrs. Beakley. Everyone else is gonna, you know, have some jokes and quips every now and then. Mrs. Beakley ain't playing that. She's a straight, no nonsense, I ain't got time for jokes, I ain't got time for humor, I ain't got time for quips. I'm just ready to do my job, and if you in my way of being my goal, we got a problem. We also got some little bit of information about Huey, Dewey, and Louie. So in this version, they're born seconds apart, but apparently they use that information to kind of create a hierarchy for themselves of the oldest, middle, and youngest child amongst the three youngins. So I thought that was an interesting thing, that even though they're basically triplets, they're still using that few precious seconds to be like, well, I'm the older child, so I say we do this, you know, so that's gonna be interesting. They gave a little bit of description of how each duck is gonna be, and I'm sorry, sometimes I get Huey, Dewey, and Louie mixed up a little bit, so if I mess this up and we find out later I'm wrong, so be it. but apparently one of the ducks is gonna be like the Junior Woodchuck guidebook type of duck. Like he's gonna be the one that's gonna be all about adventuring and all that stuff. I think that's gonna be Huey. I'm pretty sure that's what they said. Then you're gonna have one that's gonna be kind of like a little bit of nervous, nerdy type of duckling, and then you got Louie. I think that's pretty much how they explained it. So that's gonna be interesting. They're really trying very hard with this version of DuckTales to make Huey, Dewey, and Louie very distinct characters, so that way their way of saying it is they want you to come out of the show feeling like you really can relate to one of them to make them your favorite, as opposed to just going, I like the color red, I like the color blue, I like the color green, that's my favorite one. And then Webby is just crazy, eccentric, off the rails. They showed this clip that shows a little bit of Webby. She's going against the Huey, Dewey, and Louie in a turf war and a nerf war. Literally, a turf and nerf. And she is like out there a little bit. You know, yeah, you're gonna probably watch this and be like, I get a little sense of Mabel Pines in this. It's not voiced by Christian Shaw, it's Kate McCucci, but you kind of can see similar characteristics. If Gravity Falls was still on, a crossover would be imminent. but yeah, I think she's gonna definitely seem like a more fun and more interesting character than the Uncle Scrooge Webby that we got in the 80s DuckTales. Why do I feel compelled every time I talk about Webby to break out that Uncle Scrooge voice? And why can I even do that voice? That's weird. This is what I thought was really interesting. They talked to the creators about how the adventures are gonna play out, and they said that the adventures that you'll see in DuckTales, some of them will be referenced based on 80s movies and cult movies. Basically, a lot of the movies that the guys that work on this show grew up with and are fans of, they're gonna try to incorporate some of that. They specifically mentioned John Carpenter films, so if you have a favorite John Carpenter movie, maybe there's a chance that you'll see a duck version of it. But I thought that was very intriguing because, you know, I'm a fan of the Ninja Turtles series, the current series, and the creators of that show are really big fans of horror movies, so they put a lot of horror movie references in that. So if we start getting a lot of cult, adventure, Indiana Jones, and the 80s types of movies referenced in this version of DuckTales, that's gonna be awesome. GizmoDuck, Lin-Manuel Miranda was unfortunately not there, which I was surprised because D23, they showed DuckTales, which he's voicing GizmoDuck. They showed Mary Poppins Returns, which he's in. Lin-Manuel, you should have just came down to Anaheim. I'm sure the Disney people would love to see you. But the creators said that Lin-Manuel Miranda was actually their first choice for GizmoDuck, but they didn't think they were gonna get him, and then they found out they could get him, and that he was a big fan of DuckTales because the first time they even met him, he actually hummed the Moon theme from the NES game, so they were like, oh, you're a Duck fan, and that was really awesome. So they brought him in. They described GizmoDuck as being like a part Peter Parker, part Iron Man type of character that just wants to do good, wants to be a superhero and help out. But, you know, he's Fenton, so he's gonna probably mess up a little bit. They didn't have any new animation other than the clip to show us, but of like a trailer or anything like that. So what they did is they showed us some animatics. And in the animatics, they actually had a clip of Lin-Manuel Miranda's voice doing GizmoDuck. So we got to hear GizmoDuck for the first time, which is awesome. So as Fenton, he kind of has like a higher pitched voice, and then he actually said, blather and blatherskite. And then the GizmoDuck suit came on him, and then he deepens his voice to be GizmoDuck. He didn't sing any musicals though. Uncle Scrooge McDuck. His name is Uncle Scrooge McDuck. Dime, dime, gotta get that lucky dime, dime. Why am I acting like I know everything about Hamilton? I can't see the play. I don't have that much money. Oh, and GizmoDuck is Cuban. No joke. They said they're gonna actually put some nationalities on some of the ducks because of the duck traveling around to different parts of the world. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the reason why they wanted to make GizmoDuck Cuban was because one of the creators of the show, the new show, is Cuban, Latin descent. And he said that he wanted to have a cool Latino superhero that was like the main superhero and not like a token sidekick for a team. He specifically mentioned Vibe, not the Flash TV show character that's named after the character Vibe, but like the old DC comics called Vibe, who was like a Latino break dancer that created sound waves off of his break dance or something like that. He mentioned it and said that that was his only character he had when he was growing up. So that's why he wanted to make this version, the GizmoDuck, you know, have a Cuban descent and be like something that's like, okay, you know, a little international flavor in your ducks, you know. it's like when you eat birds. Some are rotisserie, some are southern fried, some are northern grilled, some got teriyaki sauce on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they can have international birds to eat. Why can't we have international birds to watch go on Disney afternoon adventures? Where am I going with this? There was a little bit of Q&A. Of course, people wanted to know if the show was going to be referencing any of the DuckTales stuff from the past. They were like, absolutely. It's going to reference the comic books. It's going to reference the original series. It's even going to reference the video game, because they talked about how there's going to be an episode that's going to happen in the series where we're going to get a flashback to Uncle Scrooge and Mrs. Beakley in the 1960s. They're bringing Louie Von Drake in an episode, and he's going to be the inventor that works for Scrooge back then, like Gyro Gearloose does now. And they said the one thing that Louie Von Drake is going to build for Scrooge McDuck is the pogo cane from the NES video game. So they're even making video game references in this. They also said that if there's any character from the DuckTales series that you were a fan of that were big, well-known characters, pretty safe to say that they're going to show up in this new version. So I'm going to assume Magic the Spell, who we haven't seen yet, is going to probably show up. We already know that Flintheart Glomgo is going to be there. We know that the Beagle Boys are going to be there. But if there's anyone else that you think should show up as a popular character in DuckTales, let's see if they show up. Except for Bubba. You don't really need to bring Bubba back. I'd be fine without that, but I feel like he'll probably show up eventually. They also said they went back through the Uncle Scrooge comics, and there's some characters from the comics that they brought into the series. Another thing I thought was interesting, that they said that there may also be a couple of episodes from the original DuckTales series that could possibly get remade or rebooted into a newer version for this series. They said there's a couple of creator favorite episodes that they were like, oh, that's a really cool premise. Let's try that again and see how it works in our world. They didn't say what specific episodes, but they did say that their favorite episodes included Double O Duck. And they also said that they loved the 5-parter episodes that DuckTales did. They thought that was one of the first cartoons that they remember seeing that would do something like that, have a 5-parter like that was so epic in scale, and you could have to watch all the different episodes to see the full story. So that's why they said that's why they wanted to incorporate that in the current series, where you're going to have a lot of one-off adventures, but it's going to be an overarching story throughout the season. So then someone asked, well, what about the other Disney afternoon shows? Could we expect a Rescue Rangers reference or a Tailspin reference? Or of course, the thing that everyone's been asking about, is Darkwing Duck going to somehow show up in this series? And the creators were like, oh, you mean the terror that flaps in the night? The overstuffed burrito that spills off of your plate? Darkwing Duck? We never heard of him. We don't know who that is, and we don't know what you're talking about. Next question. And I was like, what? So they did not confirm or deny, but they definitely were playing very coy about the possibility of Darkwing Duck showing up. They also were very coy about other Disney afternoon characters possibly making cameos or references. They also were very coy about if any music, like the Moon theme, would ever show up. Someone specifically asked, will the Moon theme ever be heard in their series? And they're like, next question. They could be messing with us. You know, sometimes people like to do that on those panels, try to act like something's there and it ain't there. But who cares? And they gave us these DuckTale patches. There's Scrooge McDuck and the title again, and Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Webby. Free stuff. And that's it. That's pretty much everything I have to say about the DuckTales panel. I think I covered it all. But man, there was a lot of stuff that happened. I think I was more in-depth about this than Avengers Infinity War's trailer. But let me know what you think. Is this getting you hype? I'm just feeling like, man, the people that are working on this, they're definitely Duck fans. I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm looking for the 24-hour premiere on August. I'm looking forward to the series actually starting in September. I'm gonna give you as much info as I can, whenever I get new stuff to tell you about the Ducks. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new here, please subscribe and also ring that bell to be notified of future videos I make. I will see you in the next video, and I love you like a play cousin. I'm Audi 5000, a chain chomp. Woohoo!